Today we're going to refresh ourselves on the fundamentals of the vertical stack. We'll then translate those ideas to introduce the horizontal stack, as well as a couple key concepts, timing and flow, that are crucial to any effective offense. We've learned already that a stack is a consistent, efficient system that we use to move the disk upfield on a scoring drive. Consistent means that it is repeatable and predictable, so that every offensive player on the field knows the system from any situation on the field. And efficient means that we can maximize our chances of gaining yards with each pass in the hopes of reaching the end zone. So let's set up our vertical stack. We have the 2 handlers and 5 cutters downfield in a vertical line. Next, let's put down some terminology so that everyone is on the same page. With a vertical stack in the center of the field, we can see that there are 2 wide open areas of the field. We'll refer to these open spaces where our cutters will be working to get open as lanes. If the defense is person to person with a solid mark forcing throws to one side, there will be an open side lane and a break side lane. Now, our cutter at the back of the stack is typically the first option, meaning that they are the active cutter. The rest of the cutters are inactive, so they remain stationed in the stack until it's their turn to make a move. Moving out into the lane, they have the option to cut in or out, also referred to as under and deep. There are plenty of ways to make a cut, which is any movement which gets you away from your defender so that you can receive a pass. A cut can be as simple as running hard from the stack to where you want to catch the disc. If your defender is quick, there's a good chance it won't be as simple as that. That is why when we typically talk about cuts, we talk about sharp changes of direction. Take your defender in one direction, and once they've committed to following you, you can quickly make a sharp change of direction to create some separation. As the in cut approaches the thrower, there is a strong case of diminishing returns on the throw. Receiving the disc 2 feet downfield does not create many new opportunities for our offense. Therefore, if the disc is not thrown to this receiver, by the time they are about 5 yards from the thrower, they should make a hard cut back into the stack. This is called clearing. By this point, another cutter should be initiating a cut to provide a new option for the thrower. Once a pass has been completed upfield, the stack reforms relative to the new thrower, and we can continue the pattern from there. Let's now introduce the horizontal stack. We'll use a lot of the same vocabulary as before. We have 3 handlers this time and 4 cutters arranged in a horizontal line, spaced evenly along the width of the field. First, let's talk about who the active cutters are. When the disc is with the center handler, the active cutters are the 2 in the middle of the field. The cutters on the sidelines are currently inactive, waiting for the disc to move either upfield or to one of the sideline handlers before they make a move. In the horizontal stack, the lanes are a little less clear because the stack isn't dividing the field into open side and break side. This is both an advantage and disadvantage because the fluidity of the lanes gives the cutters much more flexibility, although it can be ambiguous who the space belongs to when there are 2 active cutters at a time. For our purposes, we'll divide the field into 3 lanes: the left, center, and right. In a horizontal stack, 2 cutters are active at a time, making opposite moves in one lane. This requires a little bit of communication on the field, but if done correctly, it will give our thrower 2 options at once, which increases our chances for an open pass. So, our 2 cutters are given free rein to make cuts in their lane. If a cutter gets tired or is having trouble getting open, they can communicate to one of the wings to swap into the active lane so that they can clear to a sideline position. If cuts aren't developing, the handler also has the option of 2 handler resets. When a pass upfield is completed, it's time for the stack to reform around the disc. This can be a little tricky with the horizontal stack because depending on the new position of the disc, it can be vague which handler should move upfield. The general rule here is that you should always keep the lane clear for the new thrower. That said, there are always exceptions, and some offenses make it a rule that the handlers always stay back and the cutters move upfield as soon as the disc is out of their hands. So, now that we know how our offense should function, we can talk about two concepts that will take our game to the next level. Whenever a pass is completed, players need to move to new positions. Knowing where to move next is pretty simple, but timing your next move is crucial. If we catch an in-cut and look upfield, we ideally want to turn around and see the next cutter already making their move and getting open. That doesn't happen by accident. As soon as you can see a pass is about to be completed, you need to already be in motion so that as soon as you hear that catch, you're in a good position to make the next cut. Timing is what keeps offenses moving so that a thrower doesn't have to stand with the disc longer than 3 seconds. Closely tied to timing is the idea of offensive flow. Flow is the ability of an offense to make consecutive advantageous passes. Consecutive means that no thrower has to hold the disc longer than even 2 seconds, catch, turn, and throw. Advantageous is pretty clear. Movement that gets us closer to a goal. This doesn't necessarily have to be forward movement though. Moving the disc laterally to the break side can be a devastating move that the defense cannot handle. In any case, if you can time successive cuts and create flow, your offense dictates the rhythm of the game. If your cuts are timed poorly and you find that throwers are standing with the disc for 5, 6, 7 seconds at a time before getting off a reset, the defense is firmly in control of the pace of the game. That was a lot. To recap, we reviewed the vert stack, talked about lanes, active and inactive cutters, how to make a standard cut, and the general flow of the vertical stack cutters. Then we introduced the horizontal stack setup and briefly touched on timing and flow. Hope this serves as a good primer. Thanks, y'all.